you took your state forward, even though you had to balance your budget.
Well, thanks, Governor Johans. It's terrific to be on the Senate floor with other former governors. When we were debating the health care bill last year, I said that everyone who votes for it ought to be sentenced to go serve as governor for 8 years and actually try to implement it. But let me try to answer your question briefly so we can hear from the other governors. I became governor, Governor Johans, 30 years ago in the early 80s, and interest rates were, inflation was 20%. Hard to imagine, and in the early days of the Reagan administration, they had driven up interest rates to 12% to try to bring inflation down. So we had terrible times, and of course, we still had to balance our budget. We had to live within our means. We had to have the amount of money coming in equal the amount coming out. And let me just tell one story of the difference that's made in our state and how it could make in the federal government. The other day in the Environmental and Public Works Committee, the Tennessee chief highway engineer was testifying. And he was there when I was governor. He's still there. And one of the senators, the chairman, suggested that perhaps some flexible federal financing would be a good thing for Tennessee. In other words, loaning some money to the state of Tennessee to build roads. And the state engineer said, Madam Chairman, he said, with all respect, we don't want to borrow any federal money. The state of Tennessee has zero road debt. Well, that about brought the hearing to a halt because several of the senators hadn't ever heard of such a thing. He said, yes, that's correct. We have zero road debt. We use all of our gas tax money to build roads, none of it to pay interest. That means, I would say to the senator from Nebraska, when we have a tough time, like we did when I became governor, when you were governor, as we do in the country today, if our interest rates are low or we pay no interest, we can use that money to get through tough times. A lot of the businesses and the families today that have less debt are making their way through these tough times more easily. On the other hand, the federal government, according to the president's budget, by the year 2020 would be spending more money on interest on the federal debt than it would be on our national defense. The interest on the federal debt would be $931 billion by 2021. What if that money could be put back in our pockets through tax cuts, or used to help send kids to college, or build roads in the state, or energy research to lower the cost of gasoline? So one way, I would say, the senator of Nebraska, that balancing the budget helps create jobs is if you keep your interest payments down, you keep your taxes down, and you can spend your money wisely on things that count.
Senator Alexander, you raised such a valid point.